Hi everyone, in this video we'll be making this bezel ring, and we'll also be making the silver material and the sapphire material. Now I'm using Rhino 8 in this video, but if you have an earlier version of Rhino like Rhino 7 or Rhino 6 even, I think you should still be able to follow along with the tutorial. There might be some small differences, maybe the location of a tool or something, but I don't think there's anything that would be significant enough to keep you from being able to follow along with the tutorial. We'll start off by creating a new file, and we'll use the small objects millimeters template. Before we start modeling, I just want to say that we will be making this ring manually using all standard Rhino tools, but there are a few times where we could use the jewelry kit that I make. In those cases, I will show you both ways, how to do it with the jewelry kit and how to do it without the jewelry kit. So the first thing that we're going to make is the sizing circle, and that's one of the steps that we could do with the jewelry kit or without the jewelry kit. And I'll start off by showing you how to do that with the jewelry kit. So if you have the kit installed, just click on the sizing circle icon. You'll get the sizing circle dialog. We're going to use the US system. We're going to make this a size 6. And we'll put the seam at the bottom. Now you can see here that the diameter is 16.51 millimeters. And so we'll be using that diameter when we make this manually. Go ahead and click OK. And that is the sizing circle made with the jewelry kit. Now I'm going to show you how to make the sizing circle manually. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the circle. And it didn't matter which viewport we were in when we made the sizing circle with the kit, but when we're making it manually, it does matter. So we really need to be in the front viewport. And I just prefer to work with the viewports maximized generally. So I'm going to go ahead and maximize the front viewport. So I'm just going to double click on the little tab here, and that will maximize it. So we're going to come to the curve tools tab right here, and we're going to grab the circle tool. Now there are several circle tools here, but we want this one. So this one is going to ask for the center of the circle and the radius. So we're going to click on that. Up here it's asking for the center of the circle. That's going to be the center of the world. And so just up here in the command line, I'm just going to type 0 and hit enter. And that establishes the center. The next thing that we want is the diameter. Now it is possible that yours is asking for the radius. You want to be really careful with that when you're making a sizing circle, and make sure that it is set to take the diameter. Otherwise, your circle will be twice as big as it needs to be. So if it says radius here, go ahead and click on diameter. The diameter, like we said earlier, is going to be 16.51 millimeters. So type that in and press enter. And then we need to move the curve seam to the bottom. So the way we made the circle here, the curve seam is going to be on the right quad right here. And you can see that if you select the circle and then turn on the show curve ends tool here. And you can see that is where, this is where the circle starts and ends. Okay, so we just need to move it down to the bottom. There's a couple of different ways we could do that. This time what we're going to do is just rotate the circle in this direction. So we're going to click on this little rotation handle here. And you can see that the arrows are pointing in this direction, but we want to move in the opposite direction. Because of that, we need to enter a negative number. So we want to move in 90 degrees in this direction. We'll have to put in negative 90. So type negative 90 and hit enter. And you can see that now the curve seam is at the bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and close out the end analysis dialog box here. Okay, so we have the sizing circle. The next thing we need to do is import the gemstone. Okay, so the importing the gemstone is another step that we could do with the jewelry kit, or we could do it manually. So I'm going to start off by showing you how to do it with the jewelry kit. So we're just going to click on the gem loader icon right here, and we'll get the gem dialog box. We can leave the type set to fancy and the shape set to round. We don't need the cutter, so we'll go ahead and remove the check mark from that. We do want the outline, so we'll leave that there. And then we want the diameter to be 3.5 millimeters. So we're going to type 3.5 and click OK. And you can see that it has brought in a gemstone with a diameter of 3.5 millimeters, and it has the outline right here. So if we look at that in perspective, or from the top view here, it might be better. You can see we've got a circle that is the same size or diameter as the gemstone. Okay, so that is how you bring in the gemstone using the jewelry kit, and now I'll show you how to do that manually. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is delete the gemstone that we made with the jewelry kit. And in order to bring a gemstone into Rhino, you'll need to have a gemstone on your computer. So you may already have one, but if you don't, you can get one for free from cgtrader.com. This is something that I'm offering over there. You can see this is my channel name right here, and you can see that it is free. All right, so you would just, I'll leave a link to this in the description of the video. Just click on that. You'll come to this page, click on free download. It's going to make you wait for 20 seconds. And then it will present the file here for you to download. So go ahead and click on download. And then once that is done downloading, you'll need to go back to Rhino and go to File and Import. And then you'll need to navigate to wherever that file is on your computer. So if you downloaded it from cgtrader.com, it's probably going to be in your downloads folder. Just select that file and click on Open. Okay, it came in, it has a cutter. So that is this orange object here. It has the same shape as the gem, but it isn't the gem. We don't need that for this project, so you can go ahead and delete it. All right, so we just want the gemstone. Now the other problem is that it is too big. So if you used a gemstone that you already have on your computer, it could be any size. If you're using this one from cgtrader.com, it's going to be 10 millimeters in diameter. But that's okay. I'll show you how to scale it down to the correct size, no matter what size it is. Now the first thing that we want to do is go over to the top viewport and just zoom in or out until you have the gemstone pretty much taking up the entire screen, but where you have some space around it. And what we want to do is create a circle in the center of the world that has the diameter that we want. Before we do that, let's look down here and make sure that we have project activated and that we have our quad snaps and our end snaps activated. Okay, now let's go over here to the circle tool just like before, and we'll press 0 and enter to put it in the center of the world, and then we'll just type 3.5 for the diameter and hit enter. Okay, now we need to do the actual scaling. Let's go ahead and select the gemstone, come up here to the transform tab, and then click on the transform tool, and our base point is going to be the center of the world. So just go ahead and type 0 and hit enter. Now it's asking for a scale factor or first reference point. In this case, we're going to use reference points. Our first reference point is going to be up here at the top of the gemstone. You should get an end snap up there, a projected end snap. So when you get that, go ahead and click your mouse, and then up here in the command line, it's now asking for a second reference point, and that's going to be the top of the circle, the top quad. And there you should get a quad snap. So when you do, go ahead and click your mouse. And now the gemstone is 3.5 millimeters. And we have that circle, just like we did with the gemstone that we imported in from the kit. Okay, so we've got our gemstone imported, and the next thing we want to do is position it vertically. Okay, let's go to the front viewport, and I'll just zoom out a little bit here, and we will box select the gemstone, and that will include the circle, right? And what we want to do is, still under transform, we want to grab the move tool right here, and we want to snap to the top center of the gemstone, and then we want to snap to the top quad of the sizing circle. Now that we have the gemstone, the top of the gemstone touching the top of the sizing circle, we want to move it up by 3.3 millimeters. So let's go ahead and click on this up arrow and type 3.3, and hit enter. Okay, and so now the top of our gemstone is 3.3 millimeters from the top of the finger or the top of the sizing circle. Now there's nothing special about me choosing 3.3 millimeters. That was just a design choice on my part. Now that we have the gemstone positioned vertically, what we need to do is create the bezel profile or cross-section shape. We're just going to zoom in here, and that shape is going to be on the inside something like this, and on the outside it's going to be kind of an arc. So the first thing I want to do is select this circle. I'm just going to box select like that. That'll get that circle, and I want to move that up to the top of the gemstone. So it's just level with the top of the gemstone. This is going to provide a snapping point right here. This little corner of the gemstone right here is going to provide another snapping point. Now I want to make a copy of this circle, so I'm just going to press Control C and Control V, and we're going to drag that copy down until it's just inside the sizing circle like that. Okay. Now I want to scale this circle down so that it's half as big as it currently is. To do that, I'm going to press and hold the Shift key and then click on the scale handle here, and then I'm going to type 0.5 and hit enter. And so now the circle is half as big as it was, or 50% its original size. And this is going to provide another snapping point for us. Alright, so these might look like lines, but if we go over to the perspective viewport, you can see that they're circles. Now let's go to the front viewport again, and we're going to create the inside shape of the bezel. So to do that, we're going to come back here to the Curve Tools tab and grab the Polyline tool right here. So we're going to start off by snapping here to the left quad of the upper circle, and then we're going to snap to the bottom of the girdle on the left side of the gemstone right here. And then we need to make a little shelf for the gemstone to sit on. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. So right along the edge here, we're just going to, and you should have your near snaps turned on for this, and just come in maybe about here, and then we will end up by snapping here at the left quad of the lower circle. Once we do that, we need to finish the command by hitting enter. Okay, so this is the inside shape of our bezel, and now we can delete these two circles, and now we need to make the outer shape, which is going to be kind of like an arc. Now for the bezel wall right here, I want that to be 0.6 millimeters in thickness. And for the bottom down here, I want it to be 0.8 millimeters thick down here at the bottom. So I want this to be kind of thin so that the jeweler can hammer that over easily, but I want this to be at least 0.8 millimeters because this is a structural part of the ring. Alright, so to help us with that, we're going to offset this curve. We're going to select it. We're going to come up to, well, still under Curve Tools, and we're going to grab the Offset Curve tool right here. And for the distance, we're just going to type in 0.6 and then click over here to the left. And we're going to do that again. I'm just going to hit enter. That will repeat the last command, which was the Offset Curve command. For the distance, we're going to type 0.8 and then click over here to the left. So we've offset this twice, once 0.6 millimeters and once 0.8 millimeters. And this is going to give us two snapping points, one right here and one right here. So now let's grab the arc tool. Now there's a couple of arc tools here, but we want this one. This one is asking for a start point, an end point, and a direction from the start point. So let's go ahead and just click on that. And the start of our arc will be right here on that first offset. And then our end of our arc will be right here where the second offset intersects the circle. Now you need to have your intersect snap turned on for that. So when you get that intersect snap, just click. And now we need to choose a direction. And we just want the arc to come out a little past this corner right here, so just about like that. And now we can delete these two offsets. Now we do want the bottom of this arc to come past the sizing circle. So let's go ahead and come up here and click on Extend Curve, and then click here at the bottom of this curve, and then just pull down a little bit to extend it, and then click. And we're still in that command, so we can go ahead and hit enter. So now what we need to do is close off the top and bottom of this shape, and we'll do that with the line tool. So just grab the line tool and we'll snap here to the bottom of this line and here to the bottom of this line. I'm going to repeat that line tool by hitting enter, and then we'll snap here to the two top ends of the bezel shape up here. Now what we need to do is select all of these lines and then click on join. Alright, so now we have the cross-section shape or profile shape for our bezel. The next thing we need to do is turn this into a solid. So actually, before we make this into a solid, I want to show you that you can make adjustments to this if you need to. So just click on it. And for instance, some jewelers might prefer to have an angle at the top here, so you could lift this one point up here, or you could pull this point down right here. Some jewelers might prefer it level, like we had it before. I'm just going to hit Control Z, and some jewelers might like it above the top of the gemstone. So, or if you want to make the arc a little larger, you can. Okay, so you can just make adjustments, and I just wanted you to know that. And now we'll go ahead and turn this into a solid. Okay, so for this next part, we're going to revolve this shape using the revolve tool. I want to be in the perspective viewport for that, so let's just switch over to the perspective viewport. Okay, and let's click on the Surface Tools tab right here. And here is the revolve tool. So click on that. It says start of revolve axis. That's going to be the center of the world, so just press 0 and hit enter. Now it says end of revolve axis. Press enter to use C-plane Z-axis direction. So we can just hit enter because the Z axis of the perspective viewport is exactly what we want. So just hit enter. And now it's asking for the start angle. So it should say 0 there, and if it does, you can just hit enter. If it doesn't, you would need to type 0 like that. Okay. Next is asking for the revolution angle, which is 360 degrees. And it should say that already there, but if it doesn't, you'll need to type in 360. So if it does, just hit enter, and if it doesn't, just type 360 and then hit enter. Okay, and let's go ahead and switch to shaded mode here in perspective view so we can see our bezel. So that is our bezel after revolving it. And what we want to do now, we'll just come over to the front viewport. We want to trim the bottom of the bezel off with the sizing circle. I'm going to go back to the perspective viewport. Alright, so that's what we'll do next. We'll trim the bottom of that bezel off. So what we want to do now is select the sizing circle and then come up here to the Solid Tools tab, and right here click on the Extrude tool. Make sure that up in the command line both sides is set to yes. So if it's set to no like this, just click on it and set it to yes, so that it will extrude in both directions. And you just want to extrude it so that it is wider than the bezel. And it looks like I still have my grid snaps turned on, so let's go ahead and deactivate those so that they don't cause us snapping issues. Okay, so we've got our cylinder extruded here, and now what we want to do is use that to trim off the bottom of the bezel. So select the bezel, and still under Solid Tools, come over here to the Boolean Difference tool, click on that, and then select the cylinder and press enter. Okay, and then click OK on this message. Okay, so you can see that it has trimmed the bottom of that bezel off so that it is level with the sizing circle. The next thing we want to do is create the band. To create the band, let's go to the front viewport. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. Let's select the sizing circle. Now I want this band to be 1.7 millimeters thick all the way around. So let's come up here to the Curve Tools tab and click on the Offset Curve tool right here. And let's just type in 1.7 and hit enter. And then just make sure that you click outside of the sizing circle. If you come inside, it will offset to the wrong direction. So just make sure that your cursor is outside the sizing circle and click. Okay, so now we've got our sizing circle offset by 1.7 millimeters. Let's go ahead and select that and go back to perspective view. And let's grab the, go to the Solid Tools tab right here and grab the Extrude tool again. And this time we're going to enter a distance. So we want this band to be 2.2 millimeters wide. So we want to type in a distance, an extrusion distance of half that, because we're extruding in both directions. That's why we want our extrusion distance to be half of the width that we want the ring to be. So type 1.1 and hit enter. And that's going to give us a band that is 2.2 millimeters wide if you were to look at it from the right viewport. I'll just zoom in on that right here. So you can see this is 2 millimeters and it goes a little past that on each side. So it's 2.2 millimeters wide. Okay, we've got our band, but there's a problem, and that it goes all the way through the bezel. So what we want is, it's okay for it to go in a little bit, but we don't want it to go all the way through. So the next thing we're going to do is just kind of remove, if we look at it from the front view, we're going to remove this part of the band that goes through the bezel. So let's come up here to the Curve Tools tab and grab the Line tool, and we're just going to draw a line right here, kind of through the center of the bezel cross-section shape right here. So just draw a line like that, and then we're going to select this line, and we're going to go to the perspective viewport, and let's hide the bezel. So let's click on the bezel, click on visibility, and click on hide. And then let's select that line again right there. And now let's go to Surface Tools and click on Revolve. The start of the revolve axis is going to be the center of the world, so press 0 and hit enter. And then for the end of the revolve axis, we're just going to hit enter again. And then you should be able to just hit enter twice to finish out that shape. Okay, so now let's click on this cone here that we've made. You can see that the top and bottom are open. We need to cap those off. So let's come to the Solid Tools tab and click on the Cap Planar Holes tool right here. And then click OK. And then we'll use this shape to cut out that little bit of the top of this band. So select the band and then click on Boolean Difference, and then click on this kind of cone shape here and hit enter. And then click OK. And you can see it's removed that part right there. We'll come up to visibility and click on show, and it will bring our bezel back. And you can see that the band goes a little bit inside the bezel, but it doesn't go all the way through. So the only thing we need to do left now, or the only thing left to do now, is to weld the band to the bezel. So select the band, hold down Shift and select the bezel. Go to Solid Tools and click on Boolean Union. And that will go ahead and weld those together. The next thing we want to do is fillet or bevel the edges. So first I want to put some fairly large fillets or bevels on the outer edge of the band here. So under Solid Tools, we're going to click on the Fillet tool right here. And for the next radius, just click on that. We're going to type 0.7 and hit enter. Now we need to select the edges that we want to fillet, and that's going to be this edge and this edge and this edge and this edge. Now these are going to go down to the midpoint down here at the bottom. So those are the 4 edges that you want to select, and then just hit enter a couple of times and it will go ahead and fillet those for you. Now we want to fillet the inside edges and also this edge right here. Now these are not going to work because we have a seam right here where from when we welded the 2 pieces together, it left a seam right here, and that's going to cause these fillets to fail, but I want to show you that anyway. So I'm going to click on the Fillet tool again. We're going to set the radius to 0.3, and I'm going to click on this edge of the bezel, and then this edge of the ring, And then we'll do that over here on the other side as well. That edge, and that edge. And then you should be able to just double click on this edge and it should select the edges all the way around. And we can do that here. Okay, so now we have all of these edges selected. I'm going to hit enter a couple of times. And you can see that it failed just like I said it would. So I'm going to hit Control Z and I'll show you how to get rid of these seams. So what we want to do is come up here to Solid Tools and click on the Extract Surface tool right here. And we want to make sure that copy is set to no. So if we have copy set to yes, I'll show you what happens. We're going to click on these surfaces. These are the ones we want to extract. When I hit enter, I've just made copies of those surfaces, but the original surfaces are still over here on the ring, which is not what I want. So I'm going to delete those, and we'll do that again. We'll select the Extract Surfaces tool here, and we'll make sure that copy is set to no. And then we'll select this surface, and this surface. Okay, we'll hit enter, and then delete. And that will remove those surfaces from the ring. Now we're going to select the sizing circle. And we're going to come up here to, still under Solid Tools, we're going to grab the Extrude tool and just extrude it in both directions. And just make sure that you go out past the widest part of the ring here. So something like that. Now select the cylinder here, and then over here click on, we want to click on Split. So I think that's this one, yeah. So click on this icon right here, and then click on the ring and hit enter. And then click OK, and we want to remove the parts that we don't want. So basically the cylinder was cut by this ring, and now we need to get rid of the parts that we don't want. So we're going to click here and delete, click here and delete, and then we'll also click on this little circle here and delete that. So now we have this piece right here that doesn't have those seams, and we will select that and the ring, and we'll join that together, and you should get a closed poly surface. Okay, and now we should be able to make these fillets like we were trying to do earlier. So I'm going to click on the fillet tool, and I'm just going to select this edge and this edge and this edge, and I'll select these over here. I'll double click on this one and double click on this one, and then hit enter a couple of times. And you can see that this time it worked just fine. I also want to fillet this edge in here. I'll give it a little bit of a smaller one, so I'll type 0.2, and we'll just select this edge right here and hit enter a couple of times, and there we go. So now we have our ring done. This ring is ready for production, and what we want to do next is work on a version of this ring for rendering. So this is the ring that you would send to the printer and make a print of, and then hand the print off to the jeweler for them to actually produce the ring. And what we can do with this, we don't want to get rid of this, we want to save this. You could save it in a separate file. What I'm going to do is put it on a separate layer. So I'm going to select the ring, and then I'm going to right click on one of these layers. It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to right click on the red one and click on Copy Objects to Layer. So when I click on that, it's going to make a copy of this object and then put that copy on the red layer. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to rename the red layer. I'm just going to click on it, and then I'm going to rename it Production. Okay, and so we'll put this one that's still on the default layer, we'll put it on the purple layer, and I'll call the purple layer Render. So I'm going to right click on that, and with that ring selected, I'm going to click on Change Object Layer, and we'll rename this Render. So now when we click on this, there is one on the red layer and one on the purple layer. We want to hide the one on the red layer so that we don't change anything about it, and we'll just work on the one here on the purple layer. Okay, so what we want to do is just make the top of this a little shorter and round it off. So if we come into the front viewport here And let me go ahead, I'm going to select the ring and the gemstone, and we're going to come up here to visibility and click on isolate so that these are the only objects on the screen. I'm going to come to the front viewport here just so I can show you what we're going to do. Basically, I want to lower this. Basically, I don't want this to be quite as tall. So when the jeweler is done working on this, this is going to be a little bit shorter and rounded off. Now the jeweler is also is probably going to be hammered over a little bit, so it might come over the edge of the gemstone a little bit. So what we're going to do, we're not going to worry about that, but we're just going to make this a little bit shorter. I'm going to come to Curve Tools, click on the Line tool here, and I'm just going to draw a straight line. So I'm going to click here, hold down Shift, and pull out to the side, and click here. And you don't have to be in exactly the same place, but somewhere just a little bit above the girdle of the stone here. We're going to select the ring, click on Split, and then click on the line and hit Enter. And then we'll delete this top part here. And then we can delete this line. I'm going to come into Perspective View, and I'm going to hide that gemstone for a moment here just by turning that layer off. If yours is not, so this one came in on the gem layer, yes. If you used the one that I gave you from CG Trader, it will be on a gems layer. If you used the jewelry kit, it will be on the gems layer. But if you used your own model, it could be on, it's probably on the default layer. In that case, you could select it, go to visibility and hide. But I'm just going to turn this layer off, okay? Now what I want to do is come to Surface Tools and then Blend Surface, and we're just going to click on this inner edge here and then this outer edge, and then I'm going to hit Enter. I think now I will bring the gemstone back so I can have that to go by. We're going to set both of the continuity types here to tangency. So for point 1 and for point 2, we want it set to tangency. And I think we will lock these two handles together right here, and then just make that a little bit shorter, so something like that, and then click OK. Okay, so we have this kind of nice rounded surface here. We'll click on that, select the ring, and join those together, and click OK. Now if it ends up on the default layer, you can just select it, right click on Render, and click on Change Object Layer again to put it back on the render layer. Okay, so we have it ready to render as far as how it looks, but now we need to create the materials, the silver material for the ring and the sapphire material for the gemstone. Okay, so the materials, that's something else that we could do with the kit, and we can do it without the kit. So first, I'm going to show you how to do it with the kit in case you have the kit. And let's switch over to rendered mode before we do that. And you can see everything is this kind of plain white color right now. Alright, so if you have the kit, you want to click on, well, first let's click on the material tab here, which looks like a little paint tube. If you don't have that, then come up here to Window, Panels, and Materials. Go ahead and activate that. Now it might come in as a free floating window. If it does, you can just drag it over here to the tabs. I think you need to drag it by the tab, okay? So if you drag it by the title bar, it might try to dock like a toolbar. So you want to drag it by the tab, and then you can put it over here in the tabs of your side panel. So this is the Materials tab, and now we're going to click on the material loader right here in the kit, and we'll bring in the metal material first. So I'm going to select metals and click OK, and then I'm going to choose the polished white metal. Now you may see something a little different here. This is the newest version of the kit. I haven't released it quite yet. I'm waiting on an update in Rhino 8 before I release this, so you might see a file name instead. So it'll still be the polished white metal, but it won't look quite as nice as this. Okay, so I'm going to select that, click OK, and you can see it's brought that metal material into our materials panel here. And we can just drag that over onto the ring now. Now sometimes in Rhino 8, for some reason, I have to drag it 2 or 3 times before it actually brings the material over. Okay, we'll just click on this again, and this time we'll go to gems, and we'll click on stylized. You think you would click on realistic, but really you generally are going to want stylized. And then we'll choose sapphire, and we'll drag that over onto the gemstone. Now I will show you the realistic one as well. And we'll get the sapphire material for that. So when we drag the realistic material over onto the sapphire, you can see it turned clear. That's because the realistic materials are meant to be used in ray trace mode. So they are more realistic, but they only work in ray trace mode. Otherwise, they're almost completely clear. Okay, ray trace mode is difficult. It's hard on my computer, so I don't typically like to use that. It's for ray trace mode, the realistic materials, and also for actual renders, okay? But we don't need to actually render the ring right now, so. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and delete the realistic material here. And you can see it has removed it from the gemstone. And we'll switch back over to rendered. And I'll put the stylized material back here. Okay. Now you can see the bezel a little bit. It's protruding into the stone. So the materials that come with my kit for Rhino 7 and for Rhino 8, you cannot see. You can see into the stone, but you can't see through the stone. But if something protrudes into the stone, you can see that. Now Rhino 6 doesn't have that capability, so if you have my kit for Rhino 6, you will be able to see through the stone as well. Okay, so all we're going to do is just lift this up a very little bit. I'm going to come into the front viewport and just lift that up a little bit and see if that helps. Okay, so, and it looks like that fixed it for us. Okay. There's maybe a little bit going on here with the edge of the stone, so we could fix that by scaling it. So I'm just going to hold down shift and click on the scale handle, and then I'm going to type in like 0.99, and that should pull that away from the edges. So if we go into the front view, you can see there's a little bit of a gap between the edge of the stone and the bezel wall, and also between the stone and the bottom of the bezel right here, that little shelf. Okay, so you only want to do this once you're ready to render the ring. You don't want to do these things while you're busy designing the ring, because when you're designing the ring, you need the gemstone to be accurate in its size. Okay, so we have that issue fixed, and again, this is with the kit, and now I'll show you how to create these materials manually without the kit. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is delete both of these materials. And let's go ahead and click on the Add Material button right here. And let's click on Metal. So we'll make the silver material first. And you can see by default we get a nice silvery material already. We can just drag that over onto our ring. Now the color is a little too light. So to fix that, let's come down here to the color box. Just click on that. And over here on the left, you can choose silver. Now, if you have Rhino 7 or Rhino 6, you'll need to change the drop down to custom color list in order to get to the silver color. But in Rhino 8, you can have one of these other color models and also see the custom colors over here. So click on silver and click OK, and you can see that that is just a lot darker than that default material was. Okay, so we're done with the silver material. Now we'll make the sapphire material. So let's go ahead and click on the Add Material button again, and this time we're going to, now there is a gem material, okay, and you could choose that and you could set that to sapphire, but what that is the you know, that's the realistic, it's kind of like the realistic material from my kit, and you have to be in ray trace mode to see that. Okay, so that's why we're not choosing the the material from we're not choosing a gym material. We're going to go ahead and go with a custom material. So I'm going to switch this back to rendered, and I'm going to delete this material here. So click on add material and click on custom. Now in my kit I had a double-sided material, and what that means is that there's a material on the outside of the gemstone and then there was a material on the inside of the gemstone, and this allowed it where you could see into the gemstone but not through the gemstone. That is available since Rhino 7. So if you have my Rhino 6 kit, you'll be able to see slightly through the gemstone, unfortunately. But Rhino 7 and Rhino 8, I have that double-sided material, so you can see into the gemstone but not through it. But we're not going to get that complicated with the material that we're going to make manually, okay? So we're just going to create a single-sided material, and that's this custom material here. Let's go ahead and drag this over onto the gem. Now it doesn't look any different. Let's go ahead and change the reflectivity. We'll just bump that up to 100. You can see now it is a little different. Looks like it's made out of metal. And let's change the reflectivity color here. Click on that. Set the model to the HSV sliders, hue, saturation, and value, and change the hue to 240 and the saturation to say maybe 55. And let's change the value to 50. Okay, and that already looks pretty good, but what we're going to do is add a little bit of transparency to it. So let's just double click here on transparency and let's set that to maybe 7%, and that just lets us see into it a little bit. Okay, all right, so I think that looks pretty good. And one other thing you could do if you want, you could come over here to the rendering tab. If you don't have that, you can click on the window panels and activate the rendering tab right here, and you can change the background color. So you could make a gradient, but I'm just going to make the background kind of a darker gray, something like that, just so that it stands out a little bit better. Okay, and that is it. We are done with this ring. So I just want to thank all of you for watching, and I hope to see all of you in future videos.